today on VMware Aria operations. And I'd also like to thank Alicia also for assisting in getting this organised today. I like these sessions because they're personal, you get to ask a lot of questions, find a lot about the products, and these guys are really super knowledgeable. So feel free to ask questions as we go along today. There's some swag down the back. Feel free to take some of that with you, appreciate it. And if you haven't scanned the QR code, if you can scan that for me please, because that just shows our attendance.
Sales specialists for Aria, look after this other region here. They'll also go through a bit more technical jargon sort of things, and they'll give you the high level overview in terms of what Aria is doing, in terms of what we announced at Explore, and some of the things we're seeing in the marketplace. Hands up if you've seen Aria or using VMware's operations. Awesome, fantastic. So great to see you all. Thank you for using the product, and hopefully we can use some more interesting analysis about why people are using vRealize or Aria operations a bit more nowadays. So you've heard the rebranding now, in Aria, the symphony, if you like, of driving things forward and getting the motion around managing all of your VMs and also other infrastructure. A lot of people ask me, especially in my customer batches, about, we start to do more around VMware, but how we actually start to do things around other infrastructure pieces as well. So can we actually do things in terms of server, storage, network, security? So you've probably seen things like the actual cloud packs, cloud management packs, in terms of looking at how manageability can drive other things into Aria. So I'm not sure if anyone's actually seen what you can do with things like ServiceNow, integration to Aria, with things around networks, around things around your HCI stack or even compute storage, having third-party integration directly into Aria to take away from maybe potentially the need for all the other products and third-party solutions. So we want to touch on some of those things as well today to show you what the power of Aria with management packs can deliver for you. One of the things that a lot of my customers say was how I actually start to deliver a bit more serviceability and do things around program management and project management. So one of that is how I actually get better cost management and ability to see what my costs are for my infrastructure, not only VMs, but also the greater piece. So what does my compute storage look like in 3 years' time? Who knows? But how do we start to plan for that, both from a costing perspective, but also from a workload perspective? So we want to make sure you get a lot more visibility of all those things. I'm not sure whether right now with your organizations you're actually having a little bit more demand from senior leadership going, well, show me what the project is and what that project's cost is, and how do I charge that back to somebody? It's something that we're starting to see within organizations say, well, we want to develop a cloud-like template within not in public cloud but also on the hybrid cloud to start to charge back for these services. So I think it'd be a bit more of a cost center, but also recoup some of those costs as well. So some of the things we want to show you is how we actually do that. So I'm not sure whether you're seeing that at the moment. A lot of customers within government and also within the enterprise side of things, in the banking sector, are starting to do a lot more, not only from the public cloud perspective, but also more around the operational cloud they have on the hybrid side of things. So Noil will go through a bit more around some of the things we're seeing. We're going to keep this more of a demonstration rather than talking about it. So we'll do a bit of 5-minute overview in terms of what we're going to demonstrate and how we're going to demonstrate that, and then go through the actual show and tell. If there's any key topics you actually want to deep dive into, we're more than happy to go through those as we speak, so we'll keep it interactive as possible. But if there's things you want to see specifically, we're happy to go through them, and then we can take questions and answers and also then come through at the end with some further things at the end. So grab yourself a pizza, make yourself comfortable. Any questions, throw at us and we'll answer them as best we can.
Thank you, Yuri, for that introduction. So, lunch and learn. We are here to learn, right? Let's learn. There's a lot of agenda today. I'll try to cover as much as I can. And if we have kind of...
in progress.
Thank you. So if I miss some topic, it depends upon the time frame. We still have about 50-55 minutes. I'll take questions and answers as we go and move through the agenda itself. So we'll talk about the overview, what has evolved and changed over time, because you've been using it from a long time, probably using it recently. There's a lot of changes which is coming. We'll talk about that. Native integrations with VMware Cloud and native cloud. That's kind of important message that is coming across. We'll do some demos on troubleshooting, automation central, and costing. Yuri was talking about costing, showback, chargeback. That interests you. There are some features which has been enabled on analyzing the cost versus price. Compliance. How many are coming from industry where you're hearing the word compliance, okay? HIPAA, PCI DSS. It's just not assessment. We're gonna talk about how do you remediate at the same time with additional services which Aria brings into its portfolio. And we have time to talk about application monitoring and how we can go in depth inside the VM and get the metrics out of it. And there we go. All right, let's talk about it. In the past, different naming conventions, VROPS, Aria operations, vRealize operations has been merged into a common umbrella, VMware Aria. And today's focus of topic is Aria operations. What it is, it's a unified management solution for cloud native application and for multi-cloud environment. Let's take an analogy before we dig deep dive on what Aria operations is, right? On the left side, there is a slide which I've taken from the car dashboard. In the olden car days, less people on the roads, less car. You have minimum information provided on the dashboard, like there is some trips that you have made, some kilometers. There's a fuel gauge. You can kind of check how much petrol you have. There are some information about what is the speed that you're looking, right? But things have changed. The point is you're going from point A to point B as a driver. You need to have informed decisions, right? That you're going to make while you're driving. So what we have on the right is the current state where you have the console in a modernized way, where if you see at the console, you see, oh, I have a 70 zone. It recognizes the sign as you go. You have vehicles which are going side by side. You get some radar information, some notifications. Humans tend to get that notification, visual representation or some kind of alerting mechanism within the console. How much mileage you can go within this, right? You have a definite information displayed on your central console. When I showed this picture to my colleague, she said, I felt there is a consistency and security when she's going on a long drive. That's what she gets out of this particular image. So let's step back and talk about Aria operations, right? It is powered by AI and you can monitor your applications and infrastructure. It can go across clouds. It can give you a multi-cloud view and you can deploy that appliance on-prem and SaaS. So if we compare the analogy, you as administrators, cloud administrators or system administrators or vSphere administrators need to have that informed decisions as you're going towards, you're running your business as usual, right? You need to have that information collected at a central place. That's what Aria operations is. So let's talk about the old and new interfaces. How many knows the interface which is on the left side? Okay. So we have evolved the story, right? If you see the image on the left, it is a quick start guide which provides you performance, capacity, troubleshooting metrics versus the new interface, which is Launchpad, where it is more use case specific. You are coming from network background, there is a use case for that. If you're coming from vSAN side, there is a use case for that. So that's one new feature which we have added. We have moved away from VMware centric view. And if you see on the top left corner, there is an option of operational overview. That is a data centric focused view where you come to office, your morning view is like you want to know what's happening in your infrastructure. That's the view that you got in the old view. But in the new view, you will get a multi-cloud view. We want to portray that message that VMware Aria operation is just not a VMware technology where you can get the information. You can have your multi-cloud workloads running in a different department or a different team itself can consolidate so that you have an integration together between your team so that helps you better inform decisions. So that's a new feature. Public clouds, we have content packs which you can add and integrate. There are predefined object types, dashboards, and alert definitions that you can get. The famous are AWS and Azure. I'm not sure about Brisbane, which is a favorite cloud, but underlying technology is a backstage where you can ingest it into a centralized console. So if you're using an Azure service container, there's an example which talks about the relationship between the container services that you're using in which particular account, which particular region, that kind of relationship is available. And there are predefined dashboards as well. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use the existing content packs or the management packs provided with these native public cloud providers. Quickly, the main focus of Aria operation is to monitor your existing SDDC environment. It can be vSphere, ESX, vSAN. That's the center of the pillar, right? Of the image, where customers also come with different tools and technologies. Let's say they come with different hardware, storage. If you want to consolidate that, if you've heard about Blue Medora, True Visibility Suite, that's what it is. We have rebranded it to Aria Operations for Integrations. And you can integrate with Aria Operations so that you get an end-to-end visibility of your infrastructure and your application. Again, it helps you with your collaboration to faster time to resolution. There is always my tool provides this information, but it doesn't have that issue in your tool. So there is a blame game which happens, and there is a time frame which gets lost in between finding the resolution. So Aria Operation for Integration provides you that collaboration and faster time to resolution. How does that look like in real world? The arrows which are marked green is what you get with Aria Operations, your metrics from ESX, virtual machine, or data store. But when you integrate with blue part, which is Aria Operations for Integration, Dell, Cisco, UCS, name the vendors, those can be integrated. The metrics can be onboarded, provide a relationship from the hardware level as well. So any metrics of information which is coming from there can be related to your workloads which are running in your data center. And on the right side, it can go to your application layer, your database instances, any queries that you're running on top of it. Those kind of information can also be provided within the interface.
And there's a tier of capability being managed, right?
Yes, that's a common question. Like with Aria Operations Standard license that I've seen across, customers get advanced, Aria Operations Advanced. Most of these compute and storage management packs are part of it. The challenge comes in regards to the APM tools, where you need to ingest snapshots of the code which is running from other third-party tools like Datadog or maybe what's the other one that I can think of? New Relic. Yes, that part of information can also be ingested. That requires an enterprise license. So most of these management packs are bundled with your advanced licensing. Hope that answers your question, Taz. Yeah. Let's shift gears to cost settings and drivers. How many are interested in cost and doing showback and chargeback in the company? Right. So we had this cost view, right? That's the largest expense that you can talk about when you're running multi-cloud, right? So we came up with this simplified solution where you can provide the visibility, provide the analysis, and then optimization on top of it. If you've used Aria Operations, there is a widget that you can talk about. It's called total cost of ownership. And that total cost of ownership is coming from your cost drivers, which you ingest. There are about 10 to 12 parameters where you can customize according to your data center. And that cost is being ingested into your total cost of ownership itself. But there is always an analysis which runs like, why is this costing us high? So we have introduced this something called cost analysis. In the demo, probably I'll show you what that really means in comparison, where you're comparing that data center A, B, C. What is the cost in terms of the price that you're running a VM on the data center versus why it is costing this VM more compared to other department as well. So there is an analysis that you can do within Aria Operations in the interface. I'll show you the demo on that. And finally, when you analyze it, there are opportunities for optimization where you can optimize your workloads. There is a potential saving. There are some out-of-the-box dashboards that you can share it with your stakeholders, showing that this is what are the potential values. And if you follow that, there are realized savings as well that you can go ahead and run within your data center, right? A common question and concept comes in, right? It's data center, it's purchased, everything is CapEx model. But again, if you want to right size and improve the optimization of your data center, you can better use those resources so that you don't have to purchase new hardware. And there are some tools which you can do some what if analysis. How many know that tool or run it? If there is a new project comes in, we need more hardware. Have you used those tools or the feature within Aria operation?
No, yeah, but in past versions of operations.
Okay.
Years.
Okay. Definitely helps in the project management, where if you want to add, how much is going to cost you to bring new hardware or maybe optimize it, those kind of analysis can be done on top of it. Probably we can touch base on that. With basic settings, depending upon your geolocation, you want to set a currency in your Aria operations. That's the basic point. Once it is set, you cannot change it. So mine is US dollars. That's how it calculates the dollar value and show you in specific features in the costing parameter. These are the cost drivers that we can think about. We have provided you industry standards, but you can always customize it based on what you want. Right? You have a Dell hardware which is owned or leased. Those kind of metrics can be changed within the system itself. Let's shift gears to compliance. Question?
Yeah, so obviously I've never used this version of Aria, but to cost a VM, there's a lot of parameters, I guess. And what I was hoping in this version was, for example, this data center might have 3 people on staff. That costs people. So the data center is more expensive than, say, my disaster recovery site, which may have a remote hand. So the hardware is the same, cost-wise. The electricity might be cheaper because it might not be, it might be 12 hours a day rather than 24 hours for grid power. So how do you approach with this tool of costing? Say you've got a storage array, you've got 3 servers. Can you create a custom profile which bundles your servers, your switches, and provide an overall cost?
Yep.
Based on the a group of devices, or with this tool, or is it because I see Dell, I see storage.
Yeah.
Do you have ability to have multiple of these?
So this is like a guideline which has been ingested into the system, and the system kind of derives, there is a base cost driver, which is associated with these parameters, which provide input into how much is that VM costing for that particular data center.
Okay.
Human factors can also be added as additional components of the salaries, which are at the very bottom of this called additional miscellaneous, I would say, that comes under there. So calculating on these base cost drivers, you can calculate how much it is running, which VM it is running, or which data store it is running. You can do a comparison of that. Probably it's better explained in a diagram rather than me explaining what are the parameters are there. I'll show you if there is a dashboard which you can leverage, which is called total cost of ownership. It talks about the diagram of these are the cost drivers, and these are your virtual machine direct cost and indirect cost, which are associated of running a VM, right? Probably I'll come back on that when we talk about demo itself. Compliance. Let's talk about compliance, right? It's all about maintaining a consistent configuration across your infrastructure, right? It can be your best practices that you're following, troubleshooting, or maybe it's a regulatory standard that you're following. Any reason, Aria operation can provide you an overall compliance posture and ensure its preservation. How do you do it? We have different benchmarks which are available, starting with VMware STDC benchmarks, which are coming from security guidelines. There are industry-wide benchmarks as well, HIPAA, PCI DSS, ISO. And what it does is it compares the parameters with your existing workload that are running in your environment. So depending upon what standard are you measuring, it goes ahead and analyzes the information, it keeps monitoring it, and then it generates alerts on top of it. The AI and ML behind provides recommendation in forms of alert. And if there is a drift which has been detected, it creates a deviation, and then the remediation comes into picture behind the scene itself, right? And this is where the maturity model comes into picture. You can track and remediate the configuration initially manually. You get an alert, you take action on top of it. But there are other methods which you can integrate to get in the matured space. You automate it using Aria Orchestrator. We'll talk about that moving forward. Make sense? Any questions? Because I've seen customers getting alerts and it fills up the bucket. More work to do. I was like, what do I do with this? How do I fix it? I have to go manually each and every workload to, fix those problems. Time consuming. We are busy for sure. So there is a method and a workflow that we can follow. This is the workflow for compliance. The first thing is you have to add your VMware cloud account. Then you have, depending upon which industry you're coming from, you enable the standards or the management packs on top of it, HIPAA, PS, PCI, DSS, and then you assign policies on the workload that you want to monitor, right? Can be on-prem, it can be VMware cloud, depending upon which target environment you're running. And then it does the assessment and provide you update. These are the alerts that you have to take action on, making sure they're compliant. And from there onwards, you can go at the object level or benchmark level. And there are situations where you have to customize the compliance part. Combining two different HIPAA and PCI, probably, you can do that and customize it based on your requirement. A very high-level overview of the compliance. It gives you a score. At the top, you can see SDDC, which is your on-prem environment. And there are VMware Cloud on AWS, Dell, or AVS as well. Those kind of compliance as well comes into picture. When you're doing compliance, one thing comes into my mind is the shared responsibility model. If you own it, you maintain the entire stack. So it makes sense to do compliance on the whole stack rather than just the hardware or just the operating system or the VM. But when you're moving towards a cloud environment, the responsibility model is shared between you, just focusing on your virtual machine, and underlying hardware is managed by the vendor wherever you're hosting itself. So think from that perspective, that's why we have different compliance options at the top. Get a score, and the score tells you whether you're compliant or not. And based on that, you get an alert. And from that alert is triggered on a specific object which you're trying to monitor, right? Again, crawl, walk, and run model comes into picture, the maturity, how mature you are. I would say start looking into the system and try to get an idea, doing things manually first. And when you're matured in that space, you can start automating it using auto remediation. Again, when you are inside an object, you would see the view at the top. People who are use this, there is a compliance tab as well. From there, you can select that specific compliance that you're looking for, and it will tell you any violated alerts which has triggered on that particular object. So that level as well, those options are available.
Can you create compliance baselines for specific objects, so customizations? Say for a vendor, a hardware vendor who has its own hypervisor stack, right?
Mhm.
They're limited to what versions or what drivers they can install. This tool will just flag it as non-compliant because the OS is a year old, but in the stack of that vendor, it's actually perfectly at the only level that's possible. So it's like patching. You're always going to be out of patching, but if you put a baseline, you're always compliant until your next round of patching. You create a baseline, you apply, you're not compliant, you patch, and you remain compliant until your next round of patching. To avoid all these Christmas trees, yellows and reds. Is that possible on this?
So let's talk about the baseline. The baseline, if you're talking about, this is a VMware baseline, which is provided. If you see here, it's called vSphere Security Configuration Guideline. So there are guidelines which VMware provide. That is your baseline for VMware technology, right? There are other baselines which are provided by industry benchmarks. They have their own parameters of assessing how that virtual machine should, some policies and things which needs to be executed. That comes from the regulatory benchmarks. That can be activated. So underlying hardware becomes the target system using that benchmark, provided that is a VMware platform itself, if that answers your question. Right? So baseline is the parameters which are defined in these benchmarks.
I found this space to be more about sort of configuration setting rather than versions. Maybe Are you still using TLS 1.1 or something like that?
Absolutely. This could be one of the requirements.
Rather than necessarily what version you're on.
Yeah.
Not that I've been through it all that much lately, but yeah, that's sort of my recollection.
This is again an example of going into a VMware cloud. That's the target system. If you're on the cloud, it doesn't make sense to do a compliance on physical hardware because your vendor is maintaining that. So that's why you have lesser number of non-compliant resources, 740, because it's all focused on your workloads, which are running on top of the cloud. The symptoms are your baseline parameters where you're assessing, right? That security guideline has certain set of symptoms which are ingested as symptoms. And based on the symptoms, it triggers an alert that you have to take actions. Great. How many have you guys have heard about Aria Orchestrator? Yeah. Okay. Let me give you a little quick overview. Aria Orchestrator is a drag and drop workflow software that simplifies the automation of complex IT tasks. It's just not, it's an interface where you're given a canvas and a sequence of steps happens in that canvas, and you can perform your if and else conditions on top of it. So that is an advanced licensing feature. If you're on Aria Universal Advanced, the automation space, Aria Orchestrator is a part of that. You can use that and perform those actions that I was talking about on the alerts. So it's better together. Aria Operation Compliance Pack will give you alerts and as an assessment, but in order to take an action, you integrate Aria Orchestrator along with that. So there is a management pack for that. It comes in two flavors. One is it's a standalone appliance that you can deploy on-prem. Second is it can be an embedded orchestrator, part of your automation. Anybody use automation here? Aria Automation? So that is a bundled product that gets along with the automation piece itself. So two options. You can deploy it as an appliance or use an existing automation appliance that performs the remediation. Fix it. I don't want to see things red, green, yellow on my screen. Please fix it. So there is a button that pops up on that particular alert. If you click on that button, run action, it goes to the workflow, goes to the sequence of steps, remediate it, and fix your problem. That is the key to compliance, where we all talk about assessing it, but when it comes to fixing it, it takes a lot of time and effort. This is where the value proposition is better together.
Is that where you need to enable the action and enable cloud account?
There is a workflow. I was hoping to do a demo. Probably that answers your question, because the moment we integrate a management pack within Aria Operation, you provide some credentials which will talk to your orchestrator.
But when you're at the cloud account, there's also an actions enabled.
That is very few of them are a part of Aria Operations, that actions you can enable, but we are talking about beyond that. It's more actions than what you get within Aria Operations. That's one part of accessing it. Those are your basic common reboot, add CPU memory, but this is going inside the ESX host. If there is a SSH shell is enabled, it will go to the action and then perform that remediation for you. All right, I'll show you in a demo. Again, more concepts. I'm gonna go demo, right? Slides are too much. Sometimes demo is good. So give me 1 second. Yep.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much.
Well,
My demo gods are with me then for sure. It is, hang on. Yep, it is. It is my latest version. Yep, for sure. And I'll show you both parts of the demo on-prem appliance as well as SaaS. And I'll switch context in between because not all environment has everything. So I'll between SaaS version, I'll switch different organizations to show you the maximum value. Give me 1 second. Alicia, do we have any questions from online? Okay. Just almost logging in. Hey. Right. Let's move this guy away. All right. This is my lab. This is the SaaS version of Aria operations. You log in for the first time. This is your gateway to consume all the services. Right? Aria operations, automation, login site, everything is available as a service. And this is what it looks like when you open one of the services. If you're in Australia, you'll be having a local presence in Sydney. That's where your services would be spun up. I'm using US region to show the maximum demo options that we have. We talked about Launchpad, right? From Quick Start Guide, we have moved to a Launchpad, which is pillars of operations, use case specific. What are you trying to do within the system itself? Today, we'll talk about observability and cost a bit and compliance as a demo. We'll do a little bit of application monitoring as well. But anything beyond this infrastructure, VMware Cloud or public cloud, it's all about visibility, right? The first thing you want is visibility, whether it is on-prem or cloud or SaaS, whatever it is. That's what we have given you these options, where if you click on any of these options here, it would straight away take you to the dashboard in context with your infrastructure. Dashboard of VCF environment, if you're using that, or VMware Cloud on AWS itself. So those are the out-of-the-box dashboards which are available for visibility. Make sense? There are some automation central component as well, which we have introduced. Basic components. You don't have to come to office and do a reboot for something maintenance work. The system can do it for you and provide you alerting via email and perform those actions. Those actions are not limited to VMware environment. It can go to your AWS environment, GCP, AWS, and start rebooting off, on, reboot. Those kind of scenarios can be done. Let's quickly check about multi-cloud overview. This is where the focus is. We're trying to say that it's not VMware focused. It's a multi-cloud view where you have different geo presence. Probably you're running some services on AWS Azure. Those can be available. You have to just select the account that you have onboarded. Probably it is a little slow. Top objects that you're running in your infrastructure. Capacity, remaining, time remaining, some widgets, very high level overview. Total cost of ownership. And that objects that are trending in that particular account. Any alerts that you have to take action. So it's like a morning coffee. Come and look into this dashboard and say, hey, this is what I need to focus on rather than 100 things I'm busy with. This is what I can do on a daily basis that would help me more productive, being more productive within my day-to-day work. Again, at AWS level, top objects, again, same VMware technology, but the responsibility model changes. You're more focused on your workload data center. When you're on cloud, cost does matter because you want to make sure you're limiting your cost there and trying to optimize on a frequent basis, right? How do you do that? This is where your financial team, your procurement team would love to have this dollar value figure when it is, writing those invoices which are coming on a monthly basis or a yearly contract, whatever you are having. Good information there. Let's go back to Launchpad. I want to talk about the first pillar of operations because we need to fix a problem. There is a problem at 3 in the morning, Monday morning. 7 o'clock, I'm just going to office and I'm getting alerts, email notification, whatever, Slack messages. There is a problem, you need to fix it. Can we do it? Great. So alerting is one of the ways, dashboard for visibility. But I want to talk about the workbench feature that we have within monitoring and troubleshooting. This is where better together story comes in, right? How do you get a central visibility of what's running across my hardware level and OS level at the same time? And how can I troubleshoot and correlate? Let's say you can search by metrics or objects, but let's say there is a virtual machine which is running in my data center and it's creating some alerts. And I want to focus on that particular virtual machine, what's happening there, right from this Aria operation interface, rather than going into 10 different consoles. So search that. On the top left corner, you have the levels or the scope, we call it. It can go from level 0 to level 5. Level 0 means purely focused on that object where the trigger alert is triggered. And you get 3 information on top of it, right? Those 3 information is any events which has occurred, any property changes, any anomalies which has detected. So the event occurred within the last 1 hour or 2 hours, you can change the focus from that 1 hour to 6 hours to 7 days. Let's keep it on for 24 hours. And I can increase the scope of my level. See the information from events, properties, and anomalies, it changed. It's storing that metrics and providing that visibility in context with your issue, with the time frame that you're troubleshooting. And it also provides you an association of the objects that are part of that particular workload that you're troubleshooting. Any alerts which are triggered?
Bigger timeline in that state, when crunches the appliance, right?
Performance, are you talking about?
Yeah.
On SaaS platform, you should not. If there is a problem, then you're not the only one who's having a problem.
Yeah.
There would be other customers who will be having the
All
problem.
things about that.
Yeah. On-prem, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking if you change it from 1 day to a week, and then you change the scope in like even 2 to 3.
No, most people have been console. It's not it's
Yeah, yeah.
And this might be my internet.
Is this a multi-appliance application table or just one appliance with installed purposes and you scale up and use all?
When you're talking on-prem, yes, it can be deployed as high available appliance, multiple appliances, provide high availability. There are different ways of achieving high availability. There is an admin console where you can deploy multiple appliances and bring HA.
I thought of the sense where if you have a high utilized resource, whether you have multiple appliances, like you've got, picking up a tool like Foglight, where you have specific servers that do, say, storage, monitoring, alerting, and then there's another one that does the dashboard and pulls everything together.
Yep.
Is this the case, or is this?
That is the case. I think you're talking about the data source, the integration. Remember, we talked about True Visibility Suite.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a management pack for that particular appliance that you're doing separately, it can ingest the logs or metrics into the central console and then provide you visibility in context with that.
So you could say in your scenario, because like that was previous company, we've got like a HA and a data source, so we've effectively got 3 appliances. It's not HA in the sense that you can't have another HA member in another data center. It has to be all in one data center for it to work. But the integration points, you can send those metrics to different collectors, they're called, to sort of, if you want to share the load out across the appliances. They're all really effectively, even though they've got different roles, they're really all the same appliance as such. But you only get the one, what that dashboard that you log into, that's sort of the master role. But you can certainly share the metrics.
Yeah, you use by multiple collectors and say for this integration, this is the collector that's going to be used for LJ views, and you just have the HA for the web UI, That's my understanding.
For the SaaS services, it doesn't
No,
matter.
no,
Yeah,
no,
for the
no.
on-prem, yes, you can enable that.
Master of the node.
Yeah, master of the nodes, you can do that.
In the past, it was the PROs, the old version was the analytics and the UI, but
That's changed a lot. That's changed. We don't have to have that complexity here. It's just you have multiple appliances and you combine those as a services, which is provided as a UI, shared UI between the appliances, and the data gets synced between the appliances itself. Exactly. I think it's
Seems like a standard sort of architecture these days for VMware. and
we
it's
have a validated
as well.
design.
Inside,
Yep.
inside, yeah, collective.
We have validated designs. If that's what you're asking, we have links. I think TAMs are available. They know more about it, but if you're interested in validated designs, more than happy to share those with you.
There's an easy spreadsheet you can fill in.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it will tell you how many appliances you need, what size the spectrum, how much storage you're gonna need. Just plug in all the data that you know, and with the Excel spreadsheet just tells you what you need. You can scope it out. And that's just all online. I'm using myself before.
Absolutely. Well, again, the point is you need to make informed decisions like that dashboard that I was talking about, right? You select the metrics, you combine it into form of a metrics that makes sense to all the team members, and you can prove it that this is not an infrastructure issue, it can be an OS level issue, right? It's not about a blame game, it's about resolving the issue.
It's always a blame game. Never the infrastructure, it's always network. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So these are the metrics. Which metrics interest is relevant here? Anything which is yellow, double click and create your metrics out of it. CPU cost, whatever it is. That's how I kind of segregate it, what is important for me, rather than looking into the heap of metrics which is being collected. That becomes your dashboard for that moment. And you can share it with your team members. Now we have a common view.
So the yellow ones is what is related to what's causing this potential issue, or is it just?
The system is able to identify it has crossed the threshold which has been trying to measure. That's why it has generated a yellow mark as an indication, like you're running a car, or you're driving a car and there is a blind spot blinker which comes in when you're changing lanes. That's what it is doing right now. It's just a parameter looking into it and say, hey, needs your.
I've seen those different colors and didn't even know what the different colors mean, because I always have a set standard of what metrics you go and look at.
I like that, and I'll take it as a positive. You learn something new today. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure whether that was, you know, in each context of what's going on here, or if it was just maybe those metrics are the standard out of the box, more interesting metrics we would look at.
Absolutely. There are thousands and thousands of metrics here. Even I don't know how many metrics are there, but when you're troubleshooting, that's relevance to what I'm looking for as a visual
So
representation.
that will change, the colors will change depending on the.
Yellow ideally is what you need to focus on. That's my understanding. But if you're saying from yellow to red,
No, so what I mean is the metric will be, the ones which are blue.
Yeah.
Might become yellow depending on what the issue is.
correct. And once you know where the problem is, you go in context with it. And there is an action item. Voila. You don't have to go to 10 different consoles to perform it. There are some basic actions which you get within Aria operations. You can perform it right from here. Execute a script, run some processes like task managers, PID, whatever you want to go, you can do this. For the time being, something which is yellow color, just we'll talk about when we are talking compliance. But I think this answers your question. Some of the out of the box actions that you enable within the configuration. Anything which is not yellow is what you get in that particular workload that you can perform an action on. So what he's referring is there is an option here when you integrate your account, whatever it is, your vCenter account, there is an option which says enable action. And this is what it is, operational action.
You're saying we can only take action through this console if it triggers an alert and it makes a recommendation. specific on that. You can't up CPUs
You can do that.
willy-nilly. You have to have a threshold breach, an alert come in, and an action to say yes.
Not necessary, not necessary.
No, okay.
If you wanted to up CPUs, you could certainly do it. You just go and find the object in the Explorer and change it if you want. If you didn't want to.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's based on your roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
You can still get that drop down list and perform those actions. And probably, I think how organization are doing is trying to limit of what you do. You don't want to expose that to all the people where they can start playing around with the configuration. It's basically, if you really need that, if there is a problem, you can always do that. Yeah. So
Sorry, can I ask you on the table, can anyone use that in practice on your environment? Like, we've got too many pets, so even if I've got it all there, but I couldn't actually do any given.
Your team, your server teams aren't happy when you
No, like,
change this result.
The application, like if I just went in at this level and said, yeah, just right size the CPUs, the application won't come up. And often it's monolithic as well, so there'll actually be an outage, and so it's the point where whilst I can get the information out, I can't actually push the button.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're just around the room,
So,
whether that's
in
just
that-
me or whether
In that
it's
scenario, I've done right sizing a couple of times, and I've done it manually, because obviously we don't have we don't use hot ads on CPU and memory signals.
Right.
You need an outage to make a change. But I've found with the right sizing in Verox, it's too aggressive. So say if you've got an 8 CPU VM and it's saying, oh, reduce it down to 1, that's too aggressive. So I normally start at like half of what Verox is saying, because it's more realistic.
But you're able to, you know, like, I mean, maybe schedule the time and stuff.
Yeah, go back to the user and say, look, you know,
We're gonna
use
change
it
it.
this much, we're gonna change it. Yeah, cool. But as the pets, we just let our operations take care of it in 3 or 6 months' time. Because those limits will force the pet to be shot and taken out of the back.
Right. Oh, I've got some pets that have been here for years.
how are we doing with the time? I think it's 8 minutes. We are still good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go as long as you guys.
It'd be more, just finishing up that, it'd be more getting this energy on sale in the right sizing to drive that conversation and say, hey, look, this 16 CPU, 256 VMs chewing up X amount of dollars a month, you know, are not being used just for one time. It might be used.
Yeah, sure. Keeping time track, I think let's focus on compliance, right? I think this is again will take some time. I'm not going to go into slides anymore. We'll just purely be in the demo space and we'll talk more about it, right? So the first thing is there are options which is available. Again, depending upon what your target systems are, we have provided the security guide which is available on as a documentation. That's the starting point. It gives you a good information. So if you have noticed here, in the previous times, if there is a documentation, we have to search, we have to go separately and look into the VMware documentation. The great thing is we have improved the interface a lot, where I look at particular option, there is a learning link which is provided and gives you a detailed information about what's happening there. That's pretty cool. If you're looking into browsing through different options, that would provide you a summary of it. So to answer, I think the baseline that you were talking about in the security guideline, we have provided some base symptoms naming convention that we are monitoring at the host level, vCenter level, switch level. So that is pre-baked into that guideline, which is being used to assess your target system, right? That's the starting point. And you would have the same for vSAN, NSX, even sovereign cloud. Anyone from government space? This is a recent introduction where governments wants to deploy things in a sovereign cloud, and there are managed service providers who are doing it. So that option is also available within Aria operations.
So that might be our US defense.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Regulatory compliance pack as well, PCI DSS, again, the same concepts are coming from your industry. So if you select one of them, again, there is a baseline which is available that is pre-baked into the system, and you have some numbers associated with that. This is where you can apply it on a VM host level, virtual switch port group. Again, shared responsibility model. If you're on-prem, you need to have focus on the entire stack. If you're on cloud, workloads, data stores, right? From there, let's go back. And once activated, it's pretty straightforward. You on-prem, you download it, you enable it, and you apply policy on top of it. There is a default policy that comes along with it. But in SaaS version, you don't have to download any management pack. All the management packs would be there in the interface, depending upon your license. All you have to do is click on enable and activate and apply policy on top of it. Let's assess it. Again, the screenshot, the dashboards, the slide deck that I was talking about is all captured from this interface. The starting point is visibility. You would need to know what is compliant and what is non-compliant. I think I overstepped here. Let me show you a dashboard which provides you a visibility in context with your vSphere security compliance. Some of them comes along with it. Some of them you can download it from open source developer code, import it in Aria operations. Some of them you can customize it based on your requirement, right? So this is a dashboard of my vSphere environment, hardened compliance, risk. My internet is slow, but let me refresh it. Probably it might have signed out. Sorry. You guys can see my. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully it doesn't. Sorry. Load time is a charm.
It's not VMware 1.
Nah.
Explanation.
All right. So this gives you a very good visibility in terms of the actions that you can take within your environment. You can share the dashboard with your team and the alerts that comes on top of it. This is really good. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I have to sit throughout the list of the whole things which I need to be compliant on. This is where I can take actions and assign tasks within my team. If it is a network issue, if it is a SAN level, VMware environment, so I can give ownership to people, we start collaborating. And I'm not sure, this is again a different topic altogether. ServiceNow integration. You can create tickets out of it. And that is well documented within your system, who did what. That's other use case, other discussion. Another dashboard that we have that I kind of copied it from open source, might not have all the information, all the clusters that are part of it. It tells me account lockout, AD, SSH is enabled or not, any password policies. So these are all again coming from your security guide and formed as a visual representation within the system itself. Again, coming back to the assessment, it gives you alerts in form of visual representation, what actions you have to take. You can change it by group, by criticality, whatever you want to do and monitor. And once this is available, I can drill down at my ESX host level and I click on it. It takes me to that particular object, which is non-compliant, right? And that's where the symptoms comes into picture. All those parameters which are coming from your guidelines are being assessed and given you a warning, right? And this is where your crawl, walk, run model comes in. You want to do it initially manually and then automate it with orchestrator moving forward. How does that orchestrator looks like? If I embedded orchestrator looks like, when you integrate your Aria operations with the orchestrator, it knows what actions are available for consumption, right?
Out of the box is a basic set of tasks, actions you can take, but if you integrate it, you get the whole suite. Okay.
Yeah. So this is where you have integrated with Aria operations, the Aria orchestrator, and it is an appliance which you can install in your in-house. And that is where all the actions are coming from, additional actions, right? It gives you a workflow when you integrate that as a management pack within the system. And that workflow does some magic behind the scene. It's just not you connect it, you'd be having that actions available. There are some common tasks you have to perform from that dashboard, and that dashboard looks like this. I know what all orchestrators I'm integrating with. I select them, and it gives me a visibility of what all actions are available for me. There is an out-of-the-box package gets installed on your orchestrator, which has the fix or the configuration rules, the flows, which you can call into Aria operations and apply it on an object. An object can be virtual machine, ESX host, or data stores. So this is how it looks like. You can select this. You need to perform these in sequence. You need to add vCenter account to your orchestrator. You need to do a discovery of the packages that you're looking for. If I expand this, these are the packages which you're calling from orchestrator into Aria operations to perform those actions. And finally, you can add those actions. I think this is where rubber meets road. Is these are the actions which are coming from your orchestrator, which you can activate it on an object. Doesn't mean everything needs to be activated, but depending upon your people, process, technology within your company, you activate that within the system itself. Probably this is the main. There is a host configuration, maintenance. Come on. Yeah. So these are the ones which are coming from your VRO as well at the same time. Very quickly, I want to show you the workflow. Under the library, you have vCenter, which is being added as a workflow. This is the workflow schema looks like. And if we talk about Aria operations, this is where the magic happens. There is a vSphere configuration guide. There are some rules which are activated, which are available for consumption. And this is where it goes into the system and remediates the problem based on the compliance or your security guide. So if I go ahead and come here, click on this apply host configuration, it calls this host security configuration rule, which is exactly what it is. If I can show you properly. This workflow is called within Aria operation. It goes and remediate the issue for you. Still manual. You still need to perform those actions. As you get mature, there are some policies which you can activate. So if I go to the policy definition with existing policy, there are different policies you can create. There is a policy which is available. Click on edit. Alert and symptoms. I think at vCenter, there is, oh, sorry, ESX level host systems. You see, these are the parameters which are coming from your DSA, PCI, DSS. There is a column called automate. You can select that and activate it. That becomes your automated process. So now this is a full circle where you're getting alerts from the assessment, and then you're doing it manually initially. And then if you want to do automated way of doing things, this is where you activate it. This is how you fix it. Makes your life easier.
See, the first big thing there is have a basic and the orchestrated, and we get the understanding of it, using it better, we already use the VR, now we already know basic and we already
You're right. But as a workflow, when you integrate things, automation knows orchestrator, but we are doing an integration with Aria operations with orchestrator. So the system can leverage the existing vCenter. That's part of the process. Remember the dashboard that I was showing about? There were like 4 steps.
Yeah.
So if you already have the integration of vCenter, that the system knows.
Yeah.
So you can do the discovery on top of it, so that all the actions which are a part of that bundle gets onboarded into Aria operations. We are way off time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to go through costing?
Before we move on,
Yes, please.
with compliance, one of the things I'm really concerned about is getting reporting on CVEs and things like that on all these systems. And this still
Reporting on CVEs.
like compliance, like this is now missing, and yeah, pretty cool.
So this is a great story, great question. I think Taz, I remember you asked this question with other services as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are different ways of doing it, right? We are talking about the different services within Aria portfolio. When we are talking about automation space, there is a open source project which was acquired by VMware, which is called SaltStack. And now it is called Aria Config. There is a compliance component of it. It can ingest the scans from third-party tool and help you remediate it. But to my knowledge, VMware has a link, an open source security link, which would provide you some updates in context with VMware technology, CVEs.
I was going, yeah, you couldn't just be a Skyline. So let's look at last week's one with VMware tools, talks right.
Yeah.
Skyline would already be reporting that alert into VLOps because all your VMs would be running 12.3. So we would be saying CVE,
yeah,
you know, security vulnerability, whatever it was entitled, needs to be remediated on all these objects, and every single VM that has got 12.3 VM. Yeah.
If it's got declared, I guess, there's a way forward, it will be in there, but if there's no way forward.
Yep.
So is there
The CV is still not resolved, and probably lost.
Yep.
You don't, it's not scanning from a third party, it's VMware is declaring there's a CV,
Yes.
but that CV might have been breached. That route might have been breached way before that. It won't pull up data from higher organization, bulk boundaries, for example.
That's good, quite an advantage. Let's say that's not a building, but should we have validated inside our holding advances? Still would probably announce that, if you didn't say.
It won't pick up.
Correct. I mean, that's kind of all the tools that you brought, yes.
Yeah.
Those will happen. And you probably get that data on the point of view with the hosting, but if you want it from us, that's, declared announcement, you can say, Skyline.
Has everyone moved the time? Has everyone okay with the time?
Gotta be back like 2 weeks.
We have a woman's one day, so.
Oh, okay.
Will you be back by 2 then?
I'm on the GSS.
You may want to make it 3.
Does that answer your question? Skyline is one of the options to give you proactive visibility, which is one of the services.
Yeah,
But there are
I think Skyline, unless I don't know how to get the information, but can't pull out a report from Skyline and say, give me all the ESX hosts that aren't compliant with or are required to CVE or things like that. You've got to know what CVE you're looking for.
yes,
Do a search for it.
yes.
I think I have a bit more.
Yeah.
So I use Skyline for my reporting on Yuri. And so I would put the findings And that can be categorized either, criticality or security, so you look at critical security. And then you'll get the findings and there'll be a column where it says the number of objects where that's broken, and that. And then click on that, and that'll list all your 6 boxes where that's broken.
Yeah. Would that be a subject of interest if you run somewhere on Skyline? Would that be something that people would be interested in? Just while we're talking about it.
I mean, to advisor, Skyline advisor.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a Skyline Health something that diagnostic now, which is not for a separate thing?
I'm not an expert, but yeah, I mean, we can reach internally within
And then you
VMware
can
and
see all the contextual. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So confusing.
so just to add you onto that is when we're talking about CVs, the focus is within the OS or outside the OS, right? There are different ways of looking into CVs. Ideally, you need to have whole stack being compliant, right? So yes, if there is an interest and discussion that you want to do in terms of inside the OS, the operating system versus the application, that's where things go next level of salt stack or Aria config discussion. If you're interested, we can have separately offline discussion, but there are different ways of achieving this, right? Yep. Cool. Let's talk about application monitoring. I think that would be a better topic rather than talking about cost, whichever works. Application monitoring is we have different ways of doing application monitoring. One is doing an automatic discovery using the inbuilt adapter that is available within the integration. But there are some applications which we discover using an agent. It's called Telegraph agent, which is customized for Aria operations. And there is open source agent as well, which you can download and install it on your own that can send metrics to Aria operations for visibility. The baseline is you need to have a proxy deployed, and there is some base configuration you can do to send the information from your target system, your OS application, into the proxy, and the proxy sends it back to the Aria operations. That's the baseline. When we talk about service discovery, yes.
More like VM tool, because obviously VM tools is going to pull out all the virtual info.
It can do both. It can be installed on the physical server as well. Just check the compatibility of that server. When you say bare metal, are you talking about totally
So physical server.
Physical server, yeah.
So you've got a physical server.
Yes, you can
do that, and you've got a VM. So isn't the VM tools going to pull out all that application centric data, or you still need to put Telegraph on that VM?
If you're going OS level and application level, yes, you need to put an agent on top of it. VM tools can capture some basic parameters, CPU, memory, hard disk, those kind of metrics. But when you're talking inside the virtual machine, the OS level metrics, the Windows events, system alerts, all those things, need to have an agent deployed there, right? This is where you can go at the service discovery level. You can activate credential and credential-less. Some customers don't want to put credentials. They can use VM tools. It has to be a specific version that would start collecting metrics out of it. You don't have to install a separate agent. That's one way of doing things. In your configuration also, when you go and edit your configuration, there is an option called service discovery. You can activate that, and you can put some default Windows Linux credentials, which can go inside the OS, collect the application, and provide you information on top of it.
It's 2 agent class or?
This is again inbuilt adapter. I would say it uses VM tools for leveraging it.
Definitely use VM tools.
For sure.
No Telegraph.
This is not Telegraph. This is basic configuration, but you can install Telegraph agent inside the VM itself. How does that look like in application and discovery? This is where I switch context because I know I have another environment which is better when I'm explaining application monitoring. It's a SaaS platform. Hope you can see this. So this is a different organization. Still the SaaS interface. So these are the options which are available here.
Did you say earlier that it integrates with New Relic or not?
It can.
They can.
Yeah, it requires an enterprise license. Yes. So there is a management pack for New Relic.
Yeah.
You just point an API and put some credentials and you can ingest logs into it. Details. Service discovery, application discovery, and then telegraph agent. These are the options which are available. This is the first starting point. When you ingest your VMware account, start collecting information using that adapter. So there are some predefined known services, Active Directory, HTTP, it is able to identify, but you can always create your own custom services. You have your own application that you're running in-house. You can create that. I don't have the rights to show you, but I'll show you the preview. So when we talk about in VMware technology, service is a name, a display name, which is running on a specific port. That's a service. So an example of CouchDB, you have a port number and you have a display name or a process name. You can monitor that particular services. A Tableau application, there are applications which are dynamic in nature. Regex, you can put regex expressions there and start collecting information. So that's your starting point of customizing your, getting metrics from your application. So create out of the box or custom application. Once that is done, you go to the application discovery.
So that's the only disadvantage probably in most organizations is to enable that service discovery, you have to be an administrator. So you really either need to be, in Active Directory sense, like the domain admin. So you've got admin access on every box, or you have a service account. So
Would you do that? It's as a yes, service account, yes, because that's the whole idea is separations of duties and responsibilities. You would create a service account for things which you're doing, right? Restrict it. And it can do a discovery. Discovery is providing you visibility. It doesn't mean that you can take actions on it, right? Actions is the column where you do a toggle button and perform some actions
you
like
need that service account in a
yes
group or an OU
for sure.
Access to every single
for sure. Yeah.
Windows.
Yeah, this is only for discovery, right? You can have a separate account for performing actions, day-to actions, reboot, restart, patch, update, right? Those kind of things. So once that discovery is done, you can combine that into an application, right? Obviously, you'll have multiple services forming an application. That's where the discovery was done. Combine those 4 services.
Question.
Yes,
I was
please.
thinking about discovering the services. So was that always on a particular port? Like, so it is servicing others. What happens to the client that you want to know that try and discover applications on the clients?
Yep.
And you want to do some kind of monitoring on that.
Yep. And that's where 2 options were talked about, like the previous slide, right? One is the port number.
Yeah.
And the dynamic way of which is a regex expression. So if the port changes.
Okay, so it always has to be port.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Port and a name, that's static. But most of the customers, there are dynamic applications where the port and name is not same. That's where you use the regex expression.
And then something like go in and connect onto that or onto that to monitor that.
Yes.
Not like VM tools internally is looking at that process and can report on it's going good or going bad.
No.
It always externally connected into that.
Correct, because there has to be a mechanism because VMware Aria operations doesn't understand what's happening inside the operating system. That's where it can be either through a discovery or through an agent, right? We haven't covered agent. This is just the discovery services.
Sure.
The agent would sit inside. It needs to be instrumented to say, this is what you're looking for, and then send that information back to, but the system should know that there are some applications which are running, which is custom applications based on that. How do you discover that? That's what we are talking about, the discovery part. And then actions, the metrics, that information, the agent takes care of it. Right? Makes sense. This is again, very quickly. Once that is done, you can also install agents. Windows and Linux both are available. And once that application is discovered, what do you do with it? This is the cool part, which I kind of liked. So hopefully I can show you properly. I get a little confused here. So if I go here in manage services, these are some of the supported services. If you're running anything, it can discover that. Want to show you something real quick.
This is all about monitoring services and servers doing servicing clients, is that right?
Correct.
Not actually like, DIVMs or something like that. I'm thinking about perspective, we want to monitor applications.
Yeah.
This is all about monitoring how our services are going.
Yeah, so VDI solution is a total different solution. That is also possible.
Yeah.
Most of the customers use Horizon, so we have a management pack for that. That is an application for sure. Yes, we can do a lot of things within that using management pack and get visibility. But this application is a custom application or service which is running inside a VM, and then you combine all of them together to form your application itself. That's what it is. Right. Agent is running. So if I select one of them, and I can perform actions, I can install, patch, update the agent, the lifecycle of that right from this interface itself. I can do the UDP, TCP, whatever those processes that are defined as an application. I can also do a username password. Now this answers your question probably. If you're using a database instance, you need to provide a separate credentials for that to take actions. Those can be defined at this level. So individual levels, you can perform those actions. So one is a discovery, one is performing actions. That can be different. I'm going to stop here, I think. And I want to hand over things. If you want to know more about it, probably some things which I've missed out, haven't covered. That's where I'm going to.
We know your credentials now, you talked to us certain times.
Absolutely. And that is where we are, right? I think I want to hand over this to my colleague Yuri to wrap things up.
30 days trial assess.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening. Our modules up there as well, so if you have any questions, with the follow-ups on certain things, then think about how you do follow-ups, that is all available at any time. So thank you for having us here and thank you for Peter. Please take Peter for the program. And have a great day. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yuri. Thanks, Noil.